Do you have some stereotypes about people that live in Buenos Aires? Then this video is for you. Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. This week we're doing part 2 of the stereotypes that people have of Pretentios, which is the name or the term for people that live in Buenos Aires. And I'm going to be sharing with you 5 stereotypes last week. Be sure to go back and watch that video. I also shared the first 5 stereotypes and we did a true false. I said the stereotype, I let you know what my opinion was on that, and that's exactly what we're going to do today as well. So before we get into the video, be sure to go below, hit that like button and also that red subscribe button so you'll be notified when I release a new video each week. And let's get into the video. All right, today's first stereotype is going to be that Pretentios like to smoke. And unfortunately, in my opinion, I'm going to say that is true. I did notice that a lot of people smoked when we lived in Buenos Aires. I also noticed that in Paris, but it was much more common in Buenos Aires. In fact, there'd be times when you're walking down the sidewalk and when you would walk past people, sometimes you would, if you didn't want to inhale smoke, you would need to kind of hold your breath a little bit. Another thing that I noticed was they didn't give a lot of clearance between where they would smoke and the building entrances, whether it's an office building, a grocery store, a restaurant. Pretty much as soon as you walk outdoors, there'll be smoker right there, if not several. And so it's just something to be aware of if you're planning on moving there, that there is definitely a lot of smoking that happens in Buenos Aires. The second stereotype we're going to talk about today is that Pretentios eat a lot of steak. And that is true, but I'm going to give it a half true, half false. Because I think in general, everyone tends to think that people that live in Buenos Aires or even just Argentina in general only eat steak. And that's definitely not true. There's so many dishes in Argentina that don't include steak, or they have beef in them, but it's not necessarily a steak. So there's so many dishes. I'm going to talk about a milanesa. There's empanadas that have countless different fillings in them. There's so many pastas that are really good in Argentina. But there's so many other options that definitely don't involve steak. Salmon's very common in Buenos Aires as well. And then when you get into the other regions, they have different fishes and different seafoods that are very common to those different regions as well. So definitely steak is a huge thing in Buenos Aires. I'm not denying that. There is steak everywhere. You can get a really good steak at many different price points. However, it's not the only thing that Pretentios eat in Buenos Aires. And I definitely know from experience because I was actually a vegetarian for the majority of the time that I lived in Buenos Aires, and I'm actually thinking about doing a video about that. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely let me know down in the comments. I did have steak while I lived there. I became a pescatarian halfway through our time there, so I had a lot of salmon as well and different fishes. So it's definitely doable to be in Buenos Aires and not have steak all the time. The third stereotype I'm going to talk about today is that Pretentios are not political. And that is false. That is so false. They are a very political people. They love to talk and argue. It kind of goes back to the first stereotype in video 1. But they love to talk and argue about politics, especially. They like to pick a side and fight to the death or argue to the death. It is a pastime in Buenos Aires to talk about politics. When you turn on the TV, it is all over all of the news channels. And it is definitely talking politics and being interested in politics is definitely a pastime in Buenos Aires. In fact, they even, when they're protesting things, they will go to their balconies, usually at 9 p.m., and bang on pots and pans if they have a different position than what the government's doing. So politics is a really big thing in Buenos Aires. The next stereotype I'm going to share with you is that Pretentios have a European background. And this one is pretty much true. Most people that live in Buenos Aires, their ancestors came from Europe, from a different location. And this might get me in a little bit of trouble, but they will definitely let you know. They definitely consider themselves either Italian or Spanish or whatever country their ancestors are from. So if somebody comes up to you and they say they're Italian, don't be confused. They are Argentine, but their ancestors, their grandparents or great-grandparents came from Italy. and so they still consider themselves Italian. Personally, I felt like everyone was just Argentine. To me, that's kind of how I feel like in America. To me, everyone is just American. It doesn't matter where you came from, when someone came over. If you're here, you're American. And I think, to me, that's kind of the way I looked at people in Argentina. It didn't matter to me if their great-grandparents came from Italy. They've been in Argentina for 3 or 4 generations now, and they're just Argentine now. And that's the way that I looked at everyone, just kind of equally. So, but they will definitely tell you if they are from a different country other than Argentina, which again, the majority of them are from a European background. And the 5th stereotype I have for today, something a little fun, something a little cheeky, is that the most important people in Argentina are Maradona and Lionel Messi. And I'm gonna say probably true. Like I talked about in part 1 of this video, they definitely really love their football and take it very seriously. And Maradona and Lionel Messi are huge parts of that, as you guys know. I actually was living in Buenos Aires when Maradona passed away, and it was a huge, 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 huge deal. There were so many news channels that were covering just his life and also what happened around his death and the funeral afterwards. It was a huge deal. I think they might have even done a national day of mourning. What happened was they did a funeral. Well, it wasn't a funeral. It was kind of like a in waiting, or when you lie in waiting, I think it's called, where you have the body in the Capitol. So it was actually there in Casa Rosada. And there were lines of thousands of people that came. This was in the middle of the pandemic as well. But there were thousands of people that came to view his casket. It was not an open casket, it was a closed. But they came to view him, or to view his casket. They threw roses, they threw jerseys on it. And it was just really quickly, they had to keep the line moving. Even the president and vice president spent some time there with his casket. And it was a huge deal. They only did it for 1 day. And towards the end of the day, when people in line realized they weren't gonna make it in before they shut the doors, there was just this huge mob of people that tried to get in last minute. It was really, really intense. And the people were very, very sad that he had passed away. So I would definitely say that Maradona and Lionel Messi are really, really important figures in Argentine history. All right, friends, that is all the stereotypes I have of people that live in Buenos Aires. If you have a different comment or opinion or thought on the topic and you lived in Buenos Aires, then definitely put them below in the comments. I'm sure everyone would love to read them and kind of get different people's opinions before they move there. And I will see you next week. Bye, guys.